That's cheap now. Hi.
That's good.
Nobody knows what that was about.
That's editing, folks. Something that you'll never see on this channel. Okay, for sake of argument, we're just going to say that Cinderella recently came out, obviously, and I thought this would be the best possible time of year to actually do this one. I was always wanting to do Cinderella against something, and then out of the blue, I was like, wow, this is actually going to work. And I told you, and you didn't shut me down, so that usually means we progress a little bit forward, and then we actually get the video.
Long story short, this one was not my idea.
No, probably not. I have a feeling this is not going to be very favorable for either one, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out. You watched Cinderella, what, 4 in the morning this morning?
Yes.
So, yeah. So, for no other reason than the fact that Cinderella is out on DVD, it is right here. For no other reason that Cinderella is now out in theaters again, this is a versus that I thought made the most sense for this week. And yeah, that's all you're going to get from that. We're going to find out what happens when Enchanted tries to take on Cinderella. AJ, take it away.
Once again, this is the part where I normally go over how the two are related. That's pretty much the extent of that. I'm actually going to start with Enchanted, actually. Which is a very interesting take, and I remember it was a big deal when it came out.
Oh, totally.
In 2007. Which a lot of movies were a big deal that year, so you really had to stand out in 2007 if you were going to be a big deal. And by this point, unless I'm forgetting something major, there were only 2 movies that people knew Amy Adams for prior to this. And they were 2 totally different crowds.
True. You
either knew her for her Oscar-nominated performance in Junebug, or you knew her as Susan in Talladega Nights. Ricky Bobby's second girlfriend. Or his girlfriend after his wife that was also his walked all over assistant or whatever she
Most people that went to this movie probably knew her from Talladega Nights.
I would say so.
Me too.
So, obviously the concept is... Actually, I always found... Well, okay. Obviously, our concept is we start and we're in, like, the classic Disney animation.
It looks brilliant.
And she's a classic princess, like something that would have been in a movie from their 30s to 50s era in that time frame. And she's meant to be married to an extremely dim-witted prince, who we'll talk about more later.
Yes.
And she has a... like a helpful chipmunk, because they all have animals that help them out and have little personalities and shit. So, eventually, she is, like, teleported to the, don't you love my synopsis here? She's kind of, like, teleported. To the real world in New York. And she's live action, and when the chipmunk comes out, he's live action. And I like that little thing where it actually becomes, like, realistic, where when the chipmunk talks, but then when he's in the real world, he can just speak in noises. He can't actually talk. And he's, like, shocked that he can't talk. And he doesn't know what sound is coming out of him. And she's picked up by Patrick Dempsey, who, because obviously she's under the impression that she is a princess from, like, a 50s era animated Disney movie, naturally, Dempsey thinks she is...
Crazy.
A crazy homeless woman.
Yes.
And so he and his daughter take her in, and love may or may not blossom because it's a Disney movie about princesses. And there's also an evil witch that is Susan Sarandon. Now, the thing, first off, before anything, we have to talk about Amy Adams, because she's pretty much this entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you're pretty much, like, you'd have to be inhuman to not totally fall in love with Amy Adams in this movie.
Totally.
Because she's funny, and she makes you fall in love with her, and she can also make you feel really sorry for her. And she can be, if you're in Dempsey's shoes, a little frustrating. But all of this makes for this wonderful character that really would have been I would have loved to have seen this character, like, as an actual, like, in a feature-length Disney animated movie from that time period.
Agreed.
It definitely would have been something new, amidst everything, because you'll notice when you go back and watch all the Disney princess movies, the most bland thing about the movie is the Disney princess.
And then you got Princess and the Frog, which is after Enchanted, and they actually used the hand-drawn Disney animation again.
Yeah.
And it worked really well.
Um, and she really just makes this movie what it is. She's really, you know, brings out the heart and everything, and she just has this magical quality about her that I actually, despite her like 50 Oscar nominations, I don't think Amy Adams has topped this performance because
I agree with that.
you know, because she is a great actress and she's consistent, and there are some performances of hers that got Oscar nominations but get hate because of, you know, because she was nominated for them. But even so, despite all that, I don't think she's ever had quite as, I wish I had another term here, magical performance that she gave here. But there are other great things about the movie. James Marsden, for instance.
Yes.
Every time I see this movie, I laugh my ass off every single time James Marsden is on screen.
Oh, yeah.
It never fails. Every single second he is on screen is hilarious. The running joke where he always tries to start the song and it always ends up getting interrupted. The one moment where he gets run over by the bicycles. And he just played up that... he kind of got... I guess you could say typecast in romantic comedies.
Yeah.
Because he was like the perfect dim-witted Disney prince with no other personality trait except to be dashing and wanting to get married.
That's all you have to be in a Disney movie back in these days, for sure.
And I mentioned before, Susan Sarandon is fantastic,
yes.
as always. And is the perfect... She's kind of like... She's a little bit of Maleficent, and she's also a little bit of the witch from Snow White. Despite the fact that I can see the Cinderella comparison, there's a lot of Snow White in Enchanted, too.
Yeah, completely.
That poison apple keeps coming back because Timothy Spall keeps trying to...
Spall's great in this movie, too.
Yes. But yeah, the whole movie has those really funny moments, not just Marsden, and you know, Dempsey's not that bad either.
No.
He doesn't have as much to work with as everybody else because he's like the grounded character that just has to more so react to everything that's around him. But he still has some good moments. I always loved when Timothy Spall is in different disguises and he keeps trying to give her poison stuff. And finally he just says, "It's really weird. People keep wanting to give you free stuff for some reason." Also, before we move on, it's worth noting real quick that speaking of Marsden, this movie promotes one of the most underrated Disney masterpieces of all time. And it shocked me in the movie when I saw it because I was like, oh my god, people need to know this movie exists. In the hotel, when Marsden's just watching TV, thinking it's a magic mirror and talking to it.
Yes.
This magical box controls the mirror. He's watching Fun and Fancy Free.
Yeah, he is.
Which is like one of the most amazingly joyous experiences you will ever have in your entire life. I grew up with Mickey and the Beanstalk. I didn't see it along with the what was the circus bear's name that was in the first short. But anyway, I saw the whole thing in its entirety relatively recently, and it's just every possible happy Disney memory you can possibly have. And so I really appreciated seeing that in like an actual mainstream Disney movie because I don't think people really remember it much anymore except for the real enthusiasts. Because it was around that time with like the one with Goofy and the Spanish and the one about the music. The titles are just flying right out of my head.
Like Silly Symphonies?
And then we have let's go ahead and put this on the table. Idina Menzel's in this movie and she doesn't sing.
Jodie Benson's in this movie and a instrumental version of Part of Your World is playing in the background. That was awesome and I marked out for it.
Yes, we have Idina Menzel in this movie that is a musical. And she's like the only character that doesn't sing.
And she had Rent and Wicked around that same time both, so...
Yes. Was that an in-joke?
Probably.
Or...
I have a feeling probably.
Surely it would have to be. But yes. And it does have a nice love story at its center because you have the obvious conflicting thing where she has Prince Marsden on one side and he has her on the other, and they're kind of somewhat drawing towards each other, but the way it's played, though, is... I love how it's... Obviously, it's going to be far-fetched romantic-wise because it's a Disney movie. Half-animated one at that. But I love that they really play up the real world aspect because the way the movie progresses, Dempsey actually like believably falls before her.
Oh yeah,
because it takes him a long time to convince himself that she's not just crazy. And I love how it wasn't one of those things where he just like instantly believes it after a while. There's no one scene where it's like, oh my god, of course she really is a princess from an animated world. He kind of has to gradually get that way all the way to the end. And I thought that was handled really well and very cleverly. Now, and it also kind of plays up on the whole the age-old thing that everybody thought. It was a thing. It's an obvious thing, but it's popular to really point it out. Where it's very despite being its own company, they're very there's a lot of criticism towards the. So wait a minute. So you're here from a magical land where you were going to marry a prince after you just met him? That seems that seems a little unusual. And they do the whole, falling in love with somebody after meeting them after like 1 or 2 days and then marrying them and happily ever after, and how that's a bit far-fetched. I liked how they actually use the real world aspect to combine. I assume, that's pretty much the whole point of the movie, is to take the Disney princess world and kind of introduce it to literally reality and see how it handles. And it's a really great concept that they pull off really well. But I love that they do it evenly too. Like they, at the same time, they're kind of in self-parody and making fun of what they're famous for.
yeah.
They're also really, really embracing it lovingly. And they somehow managed to do that just evenly and just right and make it work really well.
And the music works really well, too.
I think the songs are kind of forgettable. I know this movie's the reason we have the Oscar rule now where only one song can be nominated from a movie. Yep. Because 3 of this movie's songs were nominated. I don't even remember what the third one was because they just never really stuck out to me, I think. Once's Victory was, I think, above and beyond.
Well, yeah.
Obvious. But yes, it still does everything really well, and it's easy to see how it got such a following really quickly.
They were going to make her an actual Disney princess, but they kind of lays back on it right after the movie. It did a great business, but it never really went any further.
It's because she has a personality, and they're against that with their Disney princesses.
It depends. Depends on how you look at it.
Okay, so you were setting yourself up for a fall here.
Yeah, no,
because I am positive, maybe not, but I'm almost positive I mentioned in my very recent review for the live-action Cinderella that I'm just not a fan of pretty much all the renditions of it that I've seen, and this one included, even though it's considered the most popular.
We talked about Cinderella's story, and when you were talking about that, I was like, I like that. It's pretty decent.
So,
I like that too.
Yes. Obviously, this is where it's this is obviously the most popular telling of the Cinderella story.
Yes.
And obviously, children, particularly girls, grow up with it, and it's the one that's embedded into their head, and it's the ultimate princess meets Prince Charming story. Isn't this the one where his name's fucking Prince Charming?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, obviously, we're talking paper thin here, and also, that this is just what it is. The movie is 1 hour and 14 minutes long. That is 74 minutes. That's very, very short. And this story is so paper thin. I know this has been talked about a lot, especially lately, especially with the remake coming out, where people were saying, is it going to be close to the cartoon, or is it going to be, whatever.
Mm.
Whatever they say. 74 minutes. This movie about Cinderella, called Cinderella, appearing as is about 75% mice running around doing shenanigans. 75%. I don't think that's an exaggeration. A lot of this movie is the mice.
It's at least 60%. I'll give you that.
And I understand, people, that's a popular criticism now, obviously, but I was really thinking about it while watching it. And it's a little baffling to me, because it's almost like the movie kind of realized that the character of Cinderella is not interesting enough to make an entire movie about. they have to keep straying away because we keep following the mice, and Cinderella will be in the room, and we could really be building her character up right now. We're in like the first, like it's just the mice doing their thing for like the entire first 25 minutes before the Cinderella story even starts happening. It's just Cinderella doing her I'm bossed around thing for like a good 25 minutes. There's less than an hour of the movie left when we finally get to the point. But the thing is when I say it seems like they didn't even want to focus on her, is because we should really be building her character by now instead of the mice, because the mice are just kind of here as her moral support or whatever. But there are multiple scenes where Cinderella will leave a room and go do something. But instead of following her and seeing how she handles whatever situation she's about to walk into, the door closes and we're left with the mice for like 10 minutes. And then she comes back. It's like, hey, were you building character in there? Because we can't see it.
It's a different time now.
Because you really need a personality that you clearly don't have. She has a personality like she has toes, if you happen to notice that. So anyway, however, and the cat too, Lucifer.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time on Lucifer and the cats. But anyway, apart from that, now, I understand, as far as that, I understand, like, you're taking, like, a classic story from however long ago, and you're making it into a Disney movie. Obviously, there's going to be talking animals and stuff that, you're making it a children's movie.
Yeah.
And not necessarily a romance movie, even though that is the core of it. But, you know, and, you know, there are good scenes with the mice, obviously. Like the scene where they have to, the big scene at the end when the stepsisters are trying to convince everybody that the shoe fits them. And the mice have to carry that key up the steps to get Cinderella out of the room she's locked in. Scenes like that work really well. And, okay, talking about the good stuff. Because I guess we need to do that.
Yes.
There are good scenes in this movie. Yeah, I guess there's good scenes in this movie. The animation is really well done and really, really classic, obviously. Much like I talked about with the live-action one of the highlights of this movie is the transformation scene with the pumpkin and the dress and the fairy godmother and all that. And the musical number where, you know, it's a song where it's, you know, about the nightingale and there's really no lyrics to it. But it's still like a really beautiful scene, and we have her like in the bubbles and all that, and it's probably the best musical number with a song with no lyrics has ever had. So that's nice. But overall, a problem here is this, despite being what it is and having its place, it almost feels like, even because the weird thing about it is it's right in the middle. Because after it we had like Sleeping Beauty and stuff like that, and long before we had stuff like Snow White. It's kind of seen as the quintessential Disney princess movie, but it's really like right in the middle of them. Like it just kind of like if you were to go back to the very beginning with Snow White and watch them all the way through, and you didn't know either one of their stances, Cinderella you would just forget instantly. If you went in blind, I think. Like, if you were to watch Snow White and all the other classics, and then you have, like, Sleeping Beauty and stuff over here, even though I didn't really praise Sleeping Beauty either, Cinderella right here in the middle, there's really nothing to remember about it at all. Because it just feels like I said, even though it's in the middle, it kind of feels like just the bland, like, starting, like, the plantation that is kind of what started where the others branched off. Like this is the absolute most blandest example of what a Disney princess is, and then the other movies just kind of build off of it. It's what what you would think, but I don't know. To me, obviously, if we're talking, you know, not just the characters of the Disney princesses, but their movies themselves, I think it's impossible to top Snow White, because when obviously I had to rewatch these recently to do videos like this, And I knew I didn't like Cinderella that much when I first saw it. And I didn't remember it. I really remember nothing except the obvious stuff like the pumpkin and the transformation and the glass slipper and all that. Because we've seen all of that in so many other variations that were more memorable. I remember more about a Cinderella story than I do this movie.
Maybe we should do that movie somewhere down the line.
Hilary Duff is more memorable than Walt Disney in one case. And it just happens to be one of the things the Disney company is most known for is this story. And so anyway, I had to rewatch these, and I knew I wasn't a fan of Cinderella, and I watched it again, and I was like, good God. It's just in one ear and out the other, and it's gone again. When I saw Snow White as a kid, I was indifferent to it. It was what it was. I think it was mostly that, it's for girls mentality that you have when you're like a 10-year-old boy. When I rewatched Snow White last year, I was in awe of it from beginning to end. Snow White is a fucking masterpiece. Said fuck in the Disney video, oops.
Wouldn't have been the first time.
Almost got there. I know, but I was...
Curse all the time.
I was thinking it maybe would have gotten there, but no. Okay, so, yes, when you go back and you look at... Because Snow White is 13 years prior, I think this is 50, I think that's 37. It's just right in the middle of the Disney Princess lineup, and it just got nothing to offer. I don't know. And like I said, I don't know if it's also because it has so many different variations that tell it a little more, broadly or whatever, and actually focus on the character of Cinderella. Even though there's not, really it all comes down to having, like, an actress for it. I mean, we were still in that great era of Disney where they weren't using big name actors, so you could the voices is all that mattered when you saw an animated character, apart from, as far as voice is concerned, I mean. So, yeah, but, I'm sure there's a reason it's earned its place.
Yes.
That's lost on me, but there is a reason it's earned its place, and I'm sure other people can elaborate on that are fans. But to me, there's just, I don't know. I just don't really get it. I mean, I know, like I said, I understand, using the side characters to kind of bring, because it's a very, very basic story. It's like the basic romance story. Where you meet Prince Charming, and then you lose Prince Charming, and then Prince Charming finds you again, or you find him again, or whatever, and everything's fantastic forever. And so you kind of have to have things that come in and bring that story to life. Even if they're on the sidelines, they still do it. But it's just, I can't get behind her as a character, and I can't get behind this movie's approach, because it doesn't really do anything to... It's just never a movie I've taken to, and it's absolutely certainly no Snow White. So, is it even worth saying that I choose Enchanted? I guess. You knew this was coming. You knew this was coming when you told me to review Cinderella. There is some stuff in there that are great. I really love that bubble scene, and I really, the key up the stairs, that's cool too.
Love the music.
The songs, I don't know. I made a mistake. I believe in the video for the live-action movie, I accidentally said that the Fairy Godmother song won the Oscar. It was nominated. It didn't actually win. But yeah, the only musical number I remember from this movie, apart from the Fairy Godmother, because you've seen it and heard it referenced everywhere, is the song that only has 4 words in it. It's ridiculous. But yeah. So yeah, even it also just kind of feels, a little derivative of Snow White too, because with all the animals and stuff, there's actually a scene where the animals help her clean everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which happens in Enchanted too.
Yeah, and the mice are some. I mean, maybe you maybe think I'm reaching here, but maybe if you watch it again, you'll see what I mean. The mice often also act a lot like the dwarves. So that's just, yeah. I have no idea how this movie has the reputation it does. I know there are a lot of people that have reasons, but
yes,
I don't know what those are. I just think it's easily, despite the fact that it is basically the poster child of Disney princesses, it's easily the most bland. And I just don't get it. So, sorry. Doing this review on your channel was probably a death wish, but you asked for it.
No, that's coming later this year, actually.
Hopefully you don't have any like Disney friends that are.
I'm sure I do.
Really, really passionate about Cinderella, because I don't think they'll be happy.
Well, how do you follow up Cinderella? Your week cryptic comment for next week is divorce. We'll see. No idea what you want to guess what that is? Be my guest. Leave a comment.
Things, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's a broad topic. It could be a lot of things.
I'll give you a hint. The Ryan O'Neal movie, Irreconcilable Differences with Drew Barrymore, is not involved. And I'm sure you're all disappointed.
Oh, man.
Man, I really... Just one of the things I want to see before I die is a review on the internet of Irreconcilable Differences.
Well, it's not going to be this channel, sorry. So that ends a very lopsided edition of Versus. Just like the last time one of my favorite movies battled something else. That was a little bit more, like, even. This one wasn't at all. Cinderella was never in the ballpark here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I should have known that going in. Tomorrow, we've got wrestling. Yeah, we'll do wrestling tomorrow, for sure. Ashley and myself are going to be doing the Raw podcast on Tuesday. NXT and Impact will continue. Vlog of Randomness, Sip and Snack, and AJ's movie reviews. Longest Ride. Yay, Nick Sparks. Yay, Nick Sparks. Saturday is going to be Gaming with Ash, and Sunday Brandy Versus. Like I said, your cryptic comment's divorce. So figure out what that is. You want to leave a comment, more than welcome to. AJ, any parting words?
That's it.